Thank you for that introduction, Barbara. And thank you so much for having me here today. I've long admired the work that Girls Right Now does, and I've long wished for some way to be even a small part of it, so I'm absolutely thrilled to be here. So I want to talk with you today about something that happened recently with a young writer who I mentor over the internet. But first, a little background. A few years ago, I was fortunate enough to work on a series of books, the first of which was the Daring Book for Girls. It was a fantastic experience, not only because it was a lot of fun to write, but also because it was so great to be able to collect and catalog so much amazing lore and knowledge that girls just know, that they share with each other on playgrounds and at sleepovers or with their mothers or sisters or grandmothers. All the stuff that rarely actually gets written down. The kind of invisible stuff that can disappear if we don't put it into written words. But probably the thing that made it best for me was that I started getting a lot of email from 9-year-old girls. That meant that I got put on a lot of forwards lists. I got a lot of chain letter emails. I debunked a lot of urban legends. But I also got emails from aspiring young 9-year-old writers. And one of those 9-year-olds just kept writing to me over the years. She asked thoughtful questions. She used punctuation, which, not everybody does, especially in emails, not even grown-ups. And she really seemed to enjoy talking about the process of writing, how you do it, what makes it happen. And so even though she was very young when we first started corresponding, I could tell she was a writer. Over the years, we've continued our correspondence. Once in a while, we talk via Skype, where she also plays the piano and shows me the pieces that she's been working on, because she's a pianist like me. And so we get to talk about the music process and the practicing process, as well as the writing process. Last summer, after she turned 12, she sent me an entire novel, a chilling tale that was part fantasy in the traditional sense and part good old-fashioned campfire ghost story. It was really good. I took notes. It was really good. But she wasn't satisfied with it. And she moved on to something else, and then something else after that, and then something else after that. And she was a bit discouraged by starting so many things and having the ideas get away from her. But I told her this is what writers do. They write, they try things out, they move on to the next thing, they circle back. It's all part of the process. So a few months ago, she landed on the idea that she felt was going to be the one that stuck. And she wrote to me about it. She had the idea for this ambitious, futuristic, dystopian tale packed with high-level political intrigue and characters who have to overcome their cultural and emotional limitations to save the world. We had a long Skype talk about how to organize it, how to approach it, what to do when the excitement of your idea runs out and all you're left with is the non-fun parts of getting it on the page. Why it's good to have an outline or a skeleton of your massive concept so that when you get bogged down or forget where you were going or even why you were so excited to be there in the first place, you can return to your basic sketch and remind yourself, right. So it was a great conversation, really productive talk, and I got an excited email from her later saying that she was going to start working on it and she couldn't wait. But then a few weeks later, I got another email with a question. And it was this question that I wanted to talk with you all about today. She wrote that she wanted to have her main characters fall in love, but there was a problem. I'm almost 13, she wrote to me, and I don't know what falling in love feels like, other than in books. Could I help her, she wondered. Could I describe it to her, explain to her what it felt like in real life, because otherwise, how else could she write about it? Never mind that she also hasn't been to a tropical island taken over by warring factions in a desperate dystopian future. That she could imagine. But falling in love? It was actually a very thoughtful question that she asked. Because, of course, anyone who's ever tried to write anything has probably been given the advice, write what you know. And it is very important to write from a place of truth, to write from that place of hard-won knowledge, and to write from a place that you know intimately. Some of the best writing we do comes from the places we've lived, so to speak. Writing about the things we've harbored, huddled over, mulled, the things we've come to know truly, whether we'd wanted to or not. So it's important to write what you know. But it's just as important, I believe, to write what you don't know. Often, it's in writing what you don't know that you find the real core of what you're writing about. Writing through the questions, working through the what ifs and but then whats, leads us circling and circling to the center, the calm place from which we can see the storm swirl. So, yes, by all means, do your research, familiarize yourself with the specifics, especially if you're writing about things that demand specificity. But sometimes you just have to write the questions. You have to imagine what you don't know yet and write it into being. Project your mind into a place you haven't been to yet. You have to tell someone a dream you've had that you don't even understand yourself. Writing what you don't know means starting where you are and using that as the leaping place, the launching pad for what comes next. In the case of my young, aspiring writer friend, I told her that I was pretty sure that even if she hadn't fallen in love yet, she'd probably fallen in friend, that she'd become good friends with someone, maybe in a friends at first sight scenario, or even perhaps becoming friends with someone who'd started out as a non-friend, if not an outright enemy. Those experiences, I pointed out to her, are perfectly valid places to start in terms of writing about falling in love. Because really, writing what you don't know is the same as writing what you do know. You just need a starting place. For instance, with Gift, which you heard a little bit about, I don't know what it's like to have supernatural powers, but the main character in my book, Gift, had them, and I had to write about what that was like for her. I also don't know what it's like to be possessed by a demon ghost, though my kids may tell you otherwise. But another character in the book had that happen to her, and I had to figure it out. So, of course, I don't know what it's like to experience those things, but I do know what it's like to feel like you're the only one who might be feeling what you're feeling. I do know what it's like to wonder what's real. I do know what it's like to go to that darkest place of who you are and discover that you never feel more like yourself, your real, authentic self, than you do in those dark moments. So I extrapolate, I imagine. I do what storytellers have done since the dawn of time. I make things up. And I try to pull the truth out of my own limited experience and make it true for everyone, at least for a little while. So I want to tell you what I told her, which is that it's okay to be 13 or even older and to have never fallen in love and to write about it anyway. The writing prepares you for what's to come. We write our way into stories and we write our way out. And when you get to the place that you've only written about, you'll find yourself on strangely familiar ground because it's something you've read about, something you've written your way through, and something you've made into your own story along the way. Thank you. So now I'll just read a little tiny snippet from Gift. The main character in Gift is named Daisy, and she's a little unusual, which probably isn't that unusual for a teenager to feel, but she actually has something legitimately unusual about her. She has some fantastical powers that she's very sensitive to electricity, and she can disrupt the electrical stuff around her, and this makes her feel like an outcast. So this is just a little snippet of Daisy kind of trying to explain herself to herself after she kind of shares this truth about herself with her best friend. I've always been like this. I remember when I was really little, like in preschool, I had this toy, a kind of little kid computerized reader. It was a book with a special pen attached to it, and if you waved the pen over certain words, the book would speak and say the words to you. But I played with it by ignoring the pen and simply waving my hands over the pages or touching the special words lightly with my fingers. Ball, it would say in its mechanical voice as I touched my pinky to the page. Cat. I thought that's how it was supposed to work. One day, as I was making my book read to me this way, my mother yanked it out of my hands. "No," she said, "you mustn't do that. You should use the special pen." I remember feeling surprised and worried that I was doing something wrong, but I can make it talk all by myself. She put her hands on my shoulder and said gently, "I know that, Daisy, but I need you to do things the normal way. If your teacher saw something like that..." She trailed off, but she didn't need to finish. I suddenly sensed what she was afraid of, that there was something wrong with me, and that because of it, there was a gulf that separated us, a dangerous something that had the power to keep us forever apart. She never said anything like that out loud, but it was clear to me that this was a secret. My mom covered up for me when we were in public at the checkout line at the grocery scanner, when it beeped like crazy and the checker couldn't get it to stop, laughing and brushing it off and escorting me to a bench fast, within eyeshot, while she paid and loaded everything back into the cart. I could see the way she would tense up or speed up or make her movements faster, louder, grander, to pull everyone's attention to her and away from me. She seemed calm, but I could see the vein in her neck pulsing, her chest and face beginning to flush slightly as she hurried me away from whatever I might be inadvertently messing with. As soon as I was old enough to go to the library by myself, I tried to learn about other people like me. Over the years, I read about mind melders who could guess the shapes drawn on special ESP cards. I saw pictures of a man who could turn spoons inside out just by staring at them with his crazy eyes, his bushy eyebrows and crushing gaze intimidating them into contortion. I learned about people who communicated with spirits and pulled long, diaphanous scarves from their bodies as proof of their connections to ghosts. I read stories of young girls who wasted away and became ghostly figures themselves. I discovered plenty about ESP and telepathy and otherworldly paranormal hoaxes and sad scams and naive believers, hysterical girls who fooled themselves into thinking they'd made contact with the spirit world, con men who tricked audiences into believing they'd seen apparitions from beyond the grave. But I discovered nothing about my particular ability, nothing that would help me explain it or understand it, or above all, be rid of it. "You simply have a gift, Daisy," my mom would tell me when she put me to bed, winding up an old-fashioned alarm clock, not a digital one like the rest of the world had. And when someone gives you a gift, you say thank you, even if you don't want it. My mother did what she could. She tried to make life normal, daisy-proofing our living space and trying to help me learn to control things. When she saw the kind of library reading I was doing, she saved up and bought me a book about yoga, thinking I might tame my wild energy through pranayama breathing exercises, asanas, the physical postures practiced by yogis for thousands of years. That book is dog-eared now, its pages marked and underlined in places, every chapter well-thumbed from the nights I spent looking through it again and again, desperate for guidance and answers. Now I have it memorized, the poses and breathing, second nature to me. Like the rules my mom gave me, it was a start, a piece of the puzzle. But the rest I'm figuring out as I go, living with this gift that some days I would rather return. Thank you.